Good morning. Today we look at 1 Kings 6 and 7. And in 6 and 7 we see Solomon building the temple. And this temple that Solomon built stood for many years. It got destroyed and rebuilt, and it was quite a building. They had, we're bringing the cedars down from up in the area of Tyre. He talked with the king up there to get that worked out, and it says it begins within the 480th year after the Israelites came out of captivity of the land of Egypt. So 480 years they had been a free people now, and in and out of following God, of course. And they had wandered the first 40 years, and then they had fairly well been settled, although it was unsettled enough because there were continual battles going on. But 480 years after they had been released from the bondage of slavery in Egypt, Solomon begins to build the temple. And it was in the fourth year of Solomon's reign, in the month of Ziv, which is the second month. The first month, I don't remember the name of it, but the first month they celebrate the Passover. And so the second month then they begin building this synagogue, the house of the Lord. And it tells it was 60 cubits long and 20 cubits wide, 30 cubits high. And so we've got, dimensions, and many people have drawn out this, the dimensions and everything that way. And maybe in some of your Bibles, they may even have a picture of it. And I know in my Bible in the house, I've got, they've got a picture, drawn out of the floor plan of the temple, and he made windows with recessed frames. I mean, that was quite a deal. Just fairly ornate for that time and everything. And he says he built structures against the walls, the nave and the sanctuary, and there were side chambers. And like in the Gospels, we see like Jesus was like teaching in the portico of Solomon, or in Solomon's portico something happened, or in they had different rooms and different names for things around there, and talked about it was 3 stories. The lowest story was 5 cubits wide, the middle one was 6 cubits wide, and the third was 7 cubits wide. I don't know how you build the higher ones wider than the bottom one, but they figured it out, and that's the way it was, unless I read that totally wrong. But it's it took. They started building in the second month rather, and they built it with stones that were from a quarry not so long ago. But the stones were all shaped and formed in the quarry. So there was no hammering, there was no cutting of the stones, there was no real noise that way within the city of Jerusalem, because all of the stones were cut out at the quarry. And you think about that these craftsmen that he had were cutting these stones and then moving them, and they fit together. And we can see pictures like of the pyramids. We still have pyramids, that we can see, and how well designed and how well made they are. And the skills of these workers with the tools that they had is nothing less than astonishing, as far as I'm concerned. That they cut these stones out at the quarry so that neither a sound of an axe nor the tool of an iron or any tool of iron was heard within the temple while it was being built. And they talk about the entrance and how it was joined to the house with timbers of cedar. The cedars from Lebanon, and we hear the cedars from Lebanon and in the Psalms and different things as well. We hear those praises of these cedars and stuff. And I think about even today, the cedar that we have and the aroma of the cedar helps keep an awful lot of pests away from clothing. We have cedar chests that are made for specific reasoning, and I've got some aromatic cedar here in my shop that I bought to line an old trunk that a person had, so that they could put blankets and things in it. And so the cedar has some qualities in that way. And think about having this whole temple lined and built with cedar. I guess I don't know whether the cedar of Lebanon was the aromatic cedar or not, but but still, the beauty of the wood and all of the structure that way. It was built, the outer walls were stone, we cut from the quarry, and yet then finished on the inside with all of this cedar. And, there's so much beauty to the woods and everything. So he built the temple and the sanctuary, and he carved all of the halls and all of that. And it says, in the fourth year, when we already said that earlier, the fourth year of Solomon's reign, in the second month, they began to lay the foundation. And in the 11th month, it was completed. Or in the 11th year, in the 8th month, the house was finished. So it took a while to build this temple. So from the second month of the fourth year to the 8th month of the 11th year. So he was 7 years in building that. But the next line, it says in the next chapter, Solomon was 13 years in building his house. And so the temple had more of a priority. And of course, I would guess that while he was building his house, that there were, he was living in parts of it, and with the temple as well, they probably were able to utilize part of it before it was completed. And then it talks about other things, like the house of the forest of Lebanon was this big, and it was roofed with cedar, and there were window frames in 3 rows, and very, very descriptive of these buildings. And the hall of pillars was 50 cubits and long and 30 wide, and the hall of the throne, and then so it's very, very specific again, as I said, in the size and the dimensions. And then he also built a house like this hall for Pharaoh's daughter, his wife, that he had taken to solidify this peace arrangement, this treaty with Egypt that way. And it says they were all made of costly stone, cut according to measure, sawed with saws, back and front, from the front of the foundation to the coping. And, the coping, the finish work. I think about that. I think about like the trim of the baseboard in my house, and I try to do some crown molding and cutting the coping and figuring out all of those angles and stuff is not easy, even when you've got, new and modern tools and everything. But here they were, with hand saws and whatever, figuring all of this out and making these ornate buildings. And then verse 13, now it says, now King Solomon invited and received Hiram from Tyre. And other places may say, instead of Hiram, may be Huram. It's a different spelling, like Saul Paul, the Roman name, Hebrew name, or, so this person comes down, he's got all of this knowledge of working in bronze, and he then does the work of the bronze and making more of the ornate things for in the temple and for the use in worship and all of that. And it talks about so many different things in this, and it's lined with, it said, I don't remember, I remember from reading through it, it talks about, that there were these bathrooms, areas for bathing, and this tank, this water tank they made would hold enough water, I think, to run 12,000 baths. I don't know how much water they used in each of their baths, but that's a lot of water. You think about even if you had 1 gallon, that's 12,000 gallons. We got a 10,000 gallon fuel tank here, and I know how big that is, but to hold enough water for that's a tremendously large facility to hold the water. And they didn't have, I just amazed at how they could build that it would hold the water with the tools and with the equipment that they had. But, the skills of these people are just, it's astonishing in so many ways, what they were able to do with what they had. And I truly believe that God was leading and guiding and, giving these people the skills, and We can read various places in the Bible, especially, in the New Testament. Some are teachers, some are prophets, some are this, some are that, and and today too. I mean, people have a variety of skills, and we are so blessed to have those varieties of skills and have minds that work in so many different ways. So Solomon got the temple built, he got his home built, and the last thing we read in chapter 7 is that all of the work of the house of the Lord was finished, and then Solomon brought all of the things that his father David had dedicated, the silver, the gold, the vessels, and stored them in the treasuries of the house of the Lord. And the Ark of the Covenant was also there. They had not had that for a while, but I believe at this time that it was back in the possession of the Israelites. And but it's just, I continue to be amazed at the abilities, the skills of these people to be able to build those things, and some of the miracles and the wonders of the world, like the Great Wall of China and the pyramids, and those things were built with skills that had to have been God-given. And God gives each and every one of us an unlimited amount of His grace. May you live in His blessings today, as always.